It's me, Captain J, your favorite pot smoking mom. Welcome to episode 13 of our PSM interview series. Whether you're rolling with us every week or you just packed your first bowl, I am so glad you're here with us. If you love our show, please give us a rating on your podcast platform. Tell a friend about our show. Check out our website, potsmokingmoms.com, and come be social with us on our social media platforms. We are very active on Instagram and TikTok, so we'd love to see you guys there. Before we get started, of course, sesh time. I'm going to do a little sesh, finish this J that I was smoking while I was preparing for this episode. I have here a J of some diesel dough from Modern Flour. If you got something, light up with me. Let's go. Let me know if you're watching on YouTube. Let me know in the comments what you're smoking, or if you've had diesel dough before, if you like it, what your opinion is. If you're not watching on YouTube, get over there. Come check us out. Come see all the awesome stuff our producer Jesse is doing. And shout out to Jesse. We love you. Let's light up. I'm ready for this. This week, in an effort to continue learning more about perimenopause and menopause, because as you know, many of us are currently navigating this part of our lives. We are interviewing Andrea Donsky, a nutritionist for almost 20 years and soon to be published menopause researcher and co-founder of Morphus. So after years of suffering from stressful menopause symptoms, Andrea co-founded Morphus to help herself and other women like herself find relief through proven solutions and clinically tested ingredients. Andrea's passion is supporting women through every stage of their menopause journey. Make sure you stick around all the way to the end of the episode, because I will be sharing some information that Andrea gave us on some free info that she's sharing with you guys, especially for our audience. So we really hope you enjoyed this interview. Dee and I have been talking about getting more perimenopause content on our channel because a lot of our audience is also going through this at the same time. We have a group of moms, we talk to each other, and we recently discovered that we're all going through this at the same time. We're like, but there's not a lot of information about it out there and not a lot of conversations being had. And one thing we were really curious about was specifically nutrition and what we can be doing to help us during this stage of our, life, basically. So when I found your page, I was very excited and I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly who we need to speak to. So can you tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you got into nutrition and your background in perimenopause as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. That's awesome. And I have been in the health and wellness space for now, it'll be 25 years next year. So a really long time. And when I turned 47, I had my first hot flash, but I had lots of symptoms before that. I just didn't know what was happening to my body or why it was happening. And when I turned 47, I remember I was standing at my desk and I thought, oh, am I in menopause? Like, I didn't even, like, it was the first thought that came through my mind, because most of us, when we think about menopause, we associate with hot flashes, right? So I was like, okay, maybe I'm in menopause. I'm like, wait, am I that old? And like, isn't menopause for like older people? Like, I just knew nothing. And as I've come to realize, having now been in this space for 7 years, 7 years, and coming from the health and wellness space, is that I started perimenopause in my mid-30s. And I started with something called phantom smells. And that's when you smell things that other people don't. And I've done a lot of research on phantom smells and other symptoms. And I started at probably around 36. And I now realize that and what I've learned over the years is that it could start as early as 36. I've had women in my community say that it started even earlier. But in general, it's about 10 years before you go into menopause, perimenopause. And perimenopause are the years before you go into menopause. Menopause is technically just one day. Everything after that is considered to be postmenopause. If it were up to me, I'd like to actually have some like rejigs of like definitions, because truthfully, it's perimenopause and menopause. Because a lot of women will say that I speak to will be like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I help women in perimenopause and menopause. Oh, they're like, oh, I'm so past that. And they're, maybe, late 50s, early 60s. And I'm like, nope, you're not past it. Because once you're in menopause the rest of your life. So it's really important that we think about this stage as, the transition, which is that perimenopause. And then once you are in menopause, which is when your period ends for, 12 consecutive months or 365 days, that's when you go into menopause. And that's when we really need to look at things like nutrition, lifestyle. Like, are we exercising? Are we moving? What are we looking at? What are we putting in and on our body? How are we managing our stress? Are you sleeping well? All of these things play a role into how we feel and how we're going to handle our symptoms as we go into this phase of life. So, from a nutrition standpoint, it's really important. And that is my background. So I'm a nutritionist. I've been a nutritionist for almost 20 years. And I always say that what worked for us before we got into perimenopause and menopause often doesn't work for us anymore. So Jay, you mentioned before gaining weight. I mean, that was something for me. I gained a lot of weight in perimenopause. In fact, I had a lot of weight fluctuations. So I would wake up and I'd be, 8 to 10 pounds heavier than I was the day before. It would last a few weeks. And then all of a sudden I'd lose the weight and then I'd gain the weight back. And this went on for years and years with no explanation. And I remember asking my colleagues, my friends, is this happening to you too? I'm not changing the way I'm eating. I'm a nutritionist. So food is my vocation. It's what I do for a living. And it's what I study and it's what I know. And I didn't change the way I exercise, but yet I put on all this weight. And then all of a sudden I kind of went off. And then so the amount of clothing you had to buy to adjust, you're like, I don't even want to buy anything because I don't even.
8 to 10 pounds is a lot.
It's a lot of weight. That's a whole
Dee asked me yesterday, she's like, have you lost weight? And I told her exactly that. I've been fluctuating. I've been going between 8 to 10 pounds since I'd say since the end of last year to now. Every few months, I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm huge. I'm 10 pounds bigger. And then I go down to 10 pounds. It's crazy. I'm like, why? Why is this happening?
It's a symptom. It's our hormones.
So I definitely want to go back to the phantom smell thing, because I think this is the first time we hear about that symptom. And then can we talk a little bit more about that and then talk about what the symptoms are?
Sure. Absolutely. So phantom smells, it's actually one of those symptoms. So phantom smells, itchy ears, body odor, BO. These are all things you're both like,
Itchy ears drive me crazy. I'm like, why?
Itchy ears. So itchy ears. So it all has to do with there's a lot of things at play, but for the majority, it's really, for the most part, it has to do with our hormones, right? Our hormones, our estrogen's going down, our progesterone's going down. And then the ratio between our estrogen and estrogen is fluctuating, going up, going down. So there's a lot going on with our hormones. So itchy ears is a big one. A lot of women are like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. And they go to their ear, nose, and throat doctor. They go to their GP and they're like, help me find out what's going on. And they're like, we can't find anything that's wrong with you. I mean, there could be a lot of reasons that for any of the 103 plus symptoms that my research has shown, but and that's why I always say, go to your doctor, get things checked out, because if it comes back, you're like, oh, we're good. We can't find a reason for it. Then we can chalk it up to possibly being a perimenopause and menopause symptom. So itchy ears has a lot to do with dryness. So as we go into perimenopause and menopause and our estrogen goes down, estrogen keeps things moist and thick and hydrated. And as we go into that phase of life, things become drier, including the mucous membranes in our ears, which cause that itchy ears. So it is a very common symptom, not very known and not very connected to being perimenopause and menopause. Of course, it could be allergies, it could be other things, but in general, it has to do with the dryness. So my thing I always say for itchy ears, dry eyes, watery eyes, itchy ears, dry scalp, dry mouth, dry vaginas. Can I say that on your show?
Yes, you can say.
Of course.
Okay, perfect. Anything that you do with dry scalp, it's really important that you look at things like omega-3s. And that ties back to your question is regarding nutrition. So there's a lot we can do, always the basis with nutrition. And then we add in the lifestyle, of course, and then also supplements if that's what you need. So I'm a big fan of omega-3s. You get them from fatty fish. You can get vegan sources, although you may need, it may take your body a little bit longer, or to convert it may not convert as well. So if you could find a good source of omega-3s that work for you, that is a really good solution for those itchy ears. So Dee, to answer your question about phantom smells, so phantom smells are when you're smelling things that other people aren't. Like I said, I started in my mid-30s. I was smelling gasoline, and I would be in cigarettes, and I'd be sitting in my office. I'd ask the girls around me, are you smelling this? A lot of them are in their 20s. They're like, no, what are you talking about? So it has to do with those hormones. But what we found out, and through the research that I've done, is that smoke is the #1 phantom smell. So again, it doesn't exist in reality in your environment. You think it does because you're smelling it, but nobody else around you smells it, and it actually doesn't exist. So smoke, number one, and it can be any type of smoke, cigar, cigarette, campfire, it doesn't matter, any type of smoke. Then we've got mildew and body odor. Those are the top 3 most common phantom smells that are.
What about poop?
Yes, huge. So there's
I'm
so
gonna
many.
say I've smelled poop or pee, and then
Yes.
like I don't smell anything. I'm like, are you sure? Did the cat pee somewhere? I'm like,
Yeah, I smell it. I'm like, my kids, the dog. I'm like, it smells like, did somebody step in poop?
Well, both of you are absolutely cat pee, dog poop, human poop. I've heard burnt wires, overheated electronics. Weed is a very big phantom smell too.
Yeah. There's always weed smell in my house. So I'm like,
that's not a phantom smell, baby. That's
definitely not phantom in this house.
Maybe not in yours, but in some people's houses, weed is a phantom smell. Sulfur, sewage, rotten eggs, and then you have like other things like burnt toast, rotten food, cheap plastic. Metal is a big one. Metal is a big one. Sweet smells too, which is interesting. So some people have sweet. Some people have an amazing smell of like chicken soup and muffins and blueberry muffins and chocolate chip cookies.
Nice phantom smells.
I'm like, why couldn't I have that? That would have been good. But no, I had to have, not so good one. So
gasoline
smells for you, Dave.
Interesting.
Oh my goodness. The itchy ear drives me crazy. And I thought it was just allergies because isn't like possible like food sensitivities and new allergies also a possible symptom? Because I've never had allergies in my life. And then last year, all of a sudden I started having allergy like reactions to things that I've never had issues with before. And I'm wondering if it's tied to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely can be. Yeah, it definitely can be. That's why I always say you want to go to your doctor, get everything ruled out. And then if they can't find something else, then it could be a perimenopause, menopause symptom.
That's crazy. So what other new supplements would you recommend to use? I've heard a lot of people recommending like magnesium. What kind of supplement regimen would you recommend women on this stage?
So I always say like there's foundation supplements that I do believe all women in perimenopause and menopause should consider. So now, of course, I'm always going to go back. I'm a nutritionist, always food first. Food first, food first, food first. You can't out supplement a good diet, right? Like we need to make sure we have the foundation, whole foods, lots of protein. We want to aim for that 30 grams of protein per meal if you can, 20 to 30. You want to look at lots of vegetables, eating the rainbows. You want lots of phytochemicals, lots of fiber. We want 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day, good quality fats like olive oil, avocado oil, palm oil, ghee, grass-fed butter, like good quality fats. And then you also want to look at fruit, low glycemic fruit, and then more in moderation or to what your tolerance level is, complex carbohydrates. You want to look at legumes, nuts and seeds. These are things that based on what your body can handle, right? So when it comes to supplements, I do believe that the 3, I call them the foundation supplements, would be magnesium. And there are a lot of different types of magnesium on the market. I like bisglycinate only because it's gentle on the stomach and it's very absorbable. And it's kind of like, I look at it as the superhero of magnesiums. Like think of the magnesium with the red cape. That's going to be magnesium bisglycinate because it helps with so many different functions. I mean, magnesium helps with so many different functions in our body, but especially brain health. It helps with muscles and bone health and eye twitches. A lot of people will have eye twitches or muscles. Yeah, see, muscle spasms. Magnesium, 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 super important. Yeah, so very important.
Then I like the eye twitches were stress or something because
yeah, you know what else too? Are like cramps a sign of perimenopause?
Like in your legs and stuff?
Cramp. Yeah, my feet
Charlie horses
all the time. Yeah.
Yes, magnesium. So try magnesium. It can be. It could be other minerals as well, but I would say start with magnesium and see how that makes you feel. Especially and so to your point, Jay, about stress. When we're stressed, we deplete magnesium from our body. When magnesium is depleted from our body, we become more stressed. So it becomes this vicious cycle. And that's why magnesium is such an important mineral that we make sure that we get enough of through our food and through supplements, because it can help with so many different things, including stress. And we know, according to our research, that we're more stressed now than we were before we got to perimenopause and menopause. 66% of women, according to our surveys, and this is over 1,000 women, have said that they're more stressed now than they were before. We also know that stress is the #1 reason we're not sleeping at night. So really important. So magnesium, I love fish oil. I'm a big fan, like as I mentioned before, the omega-3s, and I love fiber. We need to make sure we have enough fiber in our diet. So those 3 would be the foundation supplements that I believe all of us should be looking into.
Omega, magnesium, and fiber.
And fiber.
Yeah.
And fiber, we could supplement with fiber. Like, I know that ideally you want to have like your cruciferous vegetables and all the other things that would give you fiber, but ultimately, like a fiber supplement, like a thing you drink.
Yeah, so always food first. So whenever I talk about anything, it's always food first. But most of us aren't even getting half the amount of fiber that our body needs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I for sure.
I know for sure I'm not. I'm a very picky eater. I'm not good with vegetables, so
So a fiber supplement would be something that's great. So yeah, so we have a product called Fiber S. It's a soluble, it's a prebiotic, so it feeds the good bacteria in our gut. But it's also so it's a prebiotic soluble fiber that has 6.5 grams per scoop. So the key is when you're looking for any supplement and also your fiber, especially when it comes to adding. So it's a powder that you can add to your drinks, your food. You could bake with it. Just make sure it doesn't have any artificial sweeteners or artificial colors or artificial flavors or anything that, is added to it, because there's so many great options. Like our Fiber S has 1 ingredient. That's it. Like no additives, nothing else that could potentially cause other issues for us, right? So that would be, Dee, if I was going to answer your question, I would just say, look for products that don't have other additives that we just don't need, especially when there's options that don't have it.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your research that's about to be published? Are you allowed to discuss it? Can you tell us what it consisted of?
Absolutely. I'm so excited. So I am soon to be a published menopause researcher. So I have 4 abstracts that will be, I will have 4 abstracts that will be published in the journal Menopause in December. And the 4, so I started my research back in 2022. And the first groundbreaking research that we did was, it's all surveys that we have on our website. And if you could put a link below to them, I would love your community to fill them out. I'm all about making sure that we feel heard, validated, and supported. And that's what our research is doing. So the first one we did was on the signs and symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. And we discovered that there are over 103 symptoms. Now, if you Google, right, isn't that insane? Like if you Google menopause symptoms, you will see over and over again the term 34 recognized symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. I'm writing a book right now. It comes out in 2026. Do you know how hard it is to find the original source of where that came from? We couldn't find it. I even asked the Menopause Society for where that came from. Nobody seems to know. We found a quote from a woman from 2013 in a paper. So it's so interesting to me that there hasn't been any research on the number of symptoms. So our abstract will be published, and we now know there's 103 plus symptoms, and it's a lot.
That's crazy. That blows my mind, because every day we find one more symptom and we're like, the itchy scalp thing,
the itchy eyes, scalp, and the palms. I was like, itchy palms,
itchy legs, itchy feet, itchy everything.
Yeah, because of the dryness. Yeah, now I understand why all the women in the movies are always putting the lotion on. I get it now.
That's funny. So what we did find is, on average, actually, according to our research, and we have now 5,000 women who have filled out our signs and symptoms survey, that on average, the women are experiencing 31 different symptoms.
Oh my God. Yeah, we got to fill out the survey. I want to get our ladies to fill it out too. We need as much data as we can gather now that they're actually doing more research on women's health.
I know, finally. They just published a study about the changes that your brain undergoes when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's insane. Our body, I don't know, women's bodies are very complex. We go through a lot of shit.
We do. We definitely do. So it's nice to see that more money is going to be allotted to that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because the pink tax, it's like they try to market all the products to us all the time, and then they raise the prices on that. So it might as well start funding some research to find out about tampons before we use them for years to find out how horrible they are.
That's why tampons, I've always been a big believer in organic for tampons and pads, always. So so now we know why, right? Because of the research that just came out recently.
Yeah. I did want to ask you more about nutrition just because I need more specifics. I need examples because I want to be able to incorporate more things into my, but like, as a mom, we got so many things we're doing. And a lot of times we go to the easy stuff. We go to the processed, prepackaged stuff, which is terrible. So could you give us a breakdown for like a breakfast, like idea? Not, you don't have to go too crazy
Not
with
like
it,
a
but like
whole
a breakfast, like a
recommendations.
breakfast, lunch, dinner kind of thing that we can kind of, use.
So my whole thing is empowering you to make those decisions. So let's go for example. So when we know that in perimenopause and menopause, we need more protein than we had before. We need protein for many different reasons, including our bones. We need it to help with satiety. We need it to help build muscles. We need it for brain health. We need it for blood sugar regulation. We need protein for a lot of reasons. And so it's important that when you're looking at the food that you're eating, so let's start with breakfast. Try to get that 20 to 30, and I would say even if you can do the 30 grams of protein per meal. So what I try to do is I love eggs, for example. So eggs have chicken eggs. Let's talk about in particular. Will have, 5 or 6 grams of protein per egg. So if you're going to have 3 eggs, that gives you, almost 18 grams of protein for 3 eggs, let's say. Then you can add, if you need a little bit of protein powder, right? So you could play around. So I love protein powders. It gives me about 21 grams of protein. You can look at cottage cheese. If you eat dairy, not everybody does, but if you do, you can eat Greek yogurt that has high amount of protein, animal protein. So I mentioned the eggs, but if you want chicken, you can have leftover food from the night before, right? You can have chicken, you can have beef, you can have turkey, like whatever it is that you eat. It's important to think of food. So we always, at least for me, I have 3 kids. So I know my kids are older now. I still have a 13-year-old. So, but my others are my 21 and 19, or they're out of the house. I've been there, I've been through it. And coming up with meal ideas for the whole family can be tough. So, but for you in particular, for both of you, just try to focus on that animal protein if you can. Are either of you vegan or vegetarian? No? Okay. So try to focus if you can on the animal protein, because it's an easier way to get in larger amounts of protein, right? Without having, So, and then you can eat leftovers from the night before. So let's say, for example, you made yourself some chicken and you have some rice or you have some veggies. You can have, you can make yourself the eggs. You can throw a little bit of extra meat that you had from the night before in the eggs. You can have, some Greek yogurt, and not everything all together, right? But you can have some of that Greek yogurt. So just being creative, but always keeping in mind, how do I get more protein is really important, is that protein. And then for the fiber, you want to make sure you're getting the vegetables. So I talked about eating the rainbow. The reason you want to eat, and when we talk about eating the rainbow, it's different colored veggies. So always, if you can aim 3, 5 different vegetables, if you can make yourself a salad, or if you're having eggs, maybe throw some spinach or some tomatoes on the side. If you can have a salad for lunch with some chicken in it and maybe a little bit of quinoa, or maybe a little bit of millet or rice or whatever it is that you like to eat, just being more mindful of the carbohydrate portion, the complex carbohydrate portion. Because for me, and I'll give my body as an example, I can't have too much complex carbohydrates because it raises my blood sugar too much. Now, if you're going to eat your carbohydrates, please make sure that they're complex. Make sure they have their fiber in it, right? You try, if you can, not to have the white the white bread, the white rice, only because it lacks the nutrition, and it's gonna make your blood sugar shoot up much quicker than a complex carbohydrate would, like squash and pumpkin and sweet potato and that kind of thing. But everybody's different. So what works for me may not work for you, Jay, or you, D. So everybody's really different. So really listening to your body and see what works for you. But the key, in my opinion, is really focusing on whole foods. And I know that, and believe me, that when my kids were little, I literally lived out of packages. And the nice thing is, by the way, with packages, and I wrote a book called Unjunk Your Junk Food back in 2011 when my kids were little. And I was all about, what can we do to make that healthier choice. I would never say don't eat out of packages because it's not realistic. We're busy. You're busy moms, right? You've got kids, you've got, everybody's busy running around, programs, whatever it is. Just try to look for the ingredients that maybe have a little bit less of those additives, or maybe none of those additives. So you don't have to avoid it completely. You could still eat out of a package, but just try to avoid the high fructose corn syrup. Try to avoid trans fats. Try to avoid food coloring and artificial sweeteners, especially now that we have better, right? Because we have better options now these days, right? So it's just being more of a label reader, I think, is the more important message. And as much as you can, eating whole foods and adding in what you need to add in, but just being mindful of what it is you're putting in your body.
Yeah, that's so hard. What was the one thing that, I am pre-diabetic. That's another thing that I have to work on. And I've been looking into like, the carbs, I know. And I'm like a carb person. Are you kidding me? So like, when people talk about like eating your vegetable first, or what is it? Vegetable first, then your meat, then your carbs. But it's like so hard when you're used to like eating all your food
all
together.
So I know what you're talking about. And when I was in nutrition school, we learned that, 20 years ago, in terms of like the order that we eat and what's good. So eating carbohydrates on their own, especially the white carbohydrates, are going to spike your blood sugar much quicker. Actually, I do experiments all the time to see what it works. And by the way, all of our blood sugar will spike differently. Like mine might spike when I eat it, and yours might spike not as much as mine. Again, everybody's really different, right? And that's why I'm a very big believer in doing what's right for your body. Genetics play a big role. All of that is really important to pay attention to. So I know for me, so D, I'm the same. If I eat, carbohydrates before, on its own, my blood sugar will spike pretty high. So I know that if I want to eat my carbohydrates at my meal, I will try to have my protein and my vegetables first. And then I will have the carbohydrates afterwards. So it'll blunt it and won't go as high that it might go on eating it first. So that's a little bit of a trick that will help. So eating your vegetables, eating your protein, and then adding in your carbohydrates. But yes, you're eating everything at the same time. So don't stress so much. And this is what I want to be, clear about, is that it becomes overwhelming, because then you're like, oh wait, I can't eat this and I have to eat that. And like, so at the, for me, making those, being mindful, it's all about mindfulness. Being mindful, if you're going to sit down and you're going to eat, and you're having, the bigger portion should be your fruits and vegetables, and should be your protein. Have a little bit of your complex carbohydrates, because you don't want to avoid it completely if you love it, but also being mindful that when you're eating it, what time of the day are you eating it? If you're going to eat it at night, we're more insulin resistant at night. Try eating it maybe for breakfast, because then that you're going to be active all day long, right? You're working off those carbs, as opposed to having it after dinner, when you might just go and sit and maybe watch a movie or watch TV or help your kids with their homework. So when you eat, what you eat, all of that does play a role in our diet.
And you would say like the earlier you eat dinner, the better, probably, right?
Absolutely.
When you think about intermittent fasting.
Sure. So absolutely, the earlier you're going to finish dinner is the better. It's better, because then also, like, maybe you want to take a walk after dinner, and you also don't want to go to sleep too close to after you had your dinner. I like to say wait 3 or 4 hours. Some of us have food that sit in our stomach because our digestive system is changing. As we go into perimenopause and menopause, our digestive system might slow down. Our motility, our gut motility slows down. So we might not digest as quickly as we did before, especially if you're having animal protein. So if you're still full 3 hours later, wait 4 hours. Like, try to eat earlier, right? Because that's going to help you digest your food. And we want to make sure that our food is digested before we go to bed, because then what happens when we go to sleep, which we know sleep is the third most common symptom of perimenopause and menopause, sleep issues. Women are having a lot of problems with sleep. So we want to try and digest our food before we go to sleep, because then instead of our bodies repairing, our body's going to be digesting, which could be a big issue. And then we might wake up in the middle of the night. We might have cramps. We might have indigestion, right? So our sleep becomes disturbed. So yes, I love eating as early as you can, to your best. Again, do what you could do. Don't be stressed about it. Do what you can do. Eating earlier in the day will be helpful. And then if you're pre-diabetic, then being mindful of your carbohydrates, your sugar, your ultra processed sugar intake, all of that is going to be important. because we don't want to mess around with diabetes, right? Like that's an important thing. Yet you want to be mindful. So really focusing on your protein, focusing on your vegetables, your a lot of fiber. Fiber is going to blunt that blood sugar as well, which is going to be very helpful too. And I really do love intermittent fasting. It's one of those things, again, it might work great for me, not great for you, and that's okay. But maybe trying it out for at least 12 hours, then seeing if you can go to 13, 14, 15. Maybe it's like that 12 to 16 hour kind of like time frame that works for a lot of women.
So that's the target?
Yeah.
12 hours, I think, is
to
get to that point. But you start at like 10, 12, you lead up to
just start out, because if you haven't done it before, it might take your body a while to become more metabolically flexible, right? So I say start and do it. Let's say you finish dinner at 6 o'clock. Here's a trick that I like to do. So let's say, my daughter plays basketball. So some days I'm leaving the house at 6, some days I leave at 7 at night. So I'll try before I leave that's it. Like before we came on our interview, I finished dinner. I'm like, that's it. I'm not going to eat again. So what I'll do during the night, I'll have some tea. I love my herbal tea. Right. So that I don't think about it as much. I used to, I'm like, okay, what am I going to snack on? And I would I would miss it. Now I'm like, oh, okay. I look forward to my cup of herbal tea. And that's my evening snack. Right. And then now I won't eat until tomorrow. So if you can, a lot of it is mindset, because it's getting your mindset around it. A lot of it is also training your body, your physical body around it as well. But I do like it. I like it a lot for women. And then there are different times to fast. So if you're in perimenopause versus menopause, there's a great book by Mindy Peltz. It's called Fast Like a Girl. She talks about how to fast during your cycle. If you're perimenopause,
that was my other question. I heard that depending where you are in your cycle, you should be fasting a certain way as well.
Yeah, and she's an expert on that. So I would say, absolutely, I would defer to her. And she wrote a book called Fast Like a Girl. So I'd say, that would be a book to check out if intermittent fasting is important to you or you want to try it. The other thing that I think is super critical for us in this phase of life is making sure you're hydrated, because hydration, a lot of us, that's it, always having our water. Now, first of all, a lot of us are thirsty a lot. So I never leave anywhere. I'm never anywhere without my cup of tea. And I love herbal tea, or I'm a big, I every morning I make myself this big cup of herbal tea, and it comes with me everywhere, like my portable cup, my travel mug. But it's like trying to drink half your weight in ounces is important too. So that also, that'll help move things along your colon. That'll help give you energy. That'll help with your brain health. So that's an important factor when it comes to nutrition as well.
A lot of great information.
Excellent. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about We Are Morphus and what you guys offer.
Yeah, sure. So we started Morphus in 2021, and the reason we came, I'll share the title of the name, and it's so funny because everyone says Morpheus because of the Matrix.
I read Morphus, but I said Morpheus.
That's okay. Everybody does.
It was just the anniversary of the Matrix, actually.
I know.
25 years.
I know. Like, awesome. So it's Morphus. And the reason we came up with the name was because metamorphosis, so change, morph, us as a community. So we made up the word and we called it Morphus. So Morphus is all about education. So my passion is education. I always say my lane is nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements and research. So a ton of education on our website. And then we also launched a line of supplements that I myself, my business partner, Randy, who I've been business partners with for almost 25 years, same 2 female business partners, which I'm very proud of. And it's our 3rd company together. And we launched a line of supplements that we believe in, that are based on research, that we take ourselves, that we would recommend to our mothers, our family, our sisters, like to everyone around us, our friends, our customers, that we feel good about. And Morphus, it's really about empowering women to take control of their health and symptoms as they go into this phase of life.
Awesome. Tell us, okay, I want to go back to the sleeping thing.
Yeah.
It's not just sweats that sometimes wake me up at night. I'll wake up like at 4 a.m. for no reason, and then I can't go back to sleep. And this is something my mom has always told me that she struggled with, and now I'm starting to have this issue. So like, what is there anything we could do to help with the sleep stuff?
Absolutely. So let me take it a step back, and then what I'll do is I'll tell you what the top 10 symptoms are, the most common symptoms, and then I'm going to go into sleep because it's a little bit of an order. So when we started our research, I wanted to understand what are the top symptoms that women are experiencing. So I mentioned earlier how, the first thing we think, or most people think about when we think of menopause, we think of hot flashes, night sweats, right? These are the things we think about. So I was like, okay, well, let me understand exactly what the symptoms are. So based on 5,000 responses that we currently have, the research that I'm publishing is based on 2,239 responses. We've now doubled that amount, more than doubled that amount of responses, which is fabulous. And now we'll have even more because both of you will go fill it out in your community, which I'm excited. We have 10 surveys, so I'm excited. So what we found out is that the top 10 most common symptoms are, number one, fatigue. Across the board, whether you're in perimenopause or menopause, exhaustion and fatigue is number one. Number two is brain fog. Number three is sleep issues. Number four is memory loss. Then we have anxiety, loss of libido, joint pain, lack of concentration, lack of focus, and then hot flashes come in at number 10, which is very.
Oh my God, lack of
That's the one you hear the most.
So if you're ADHD and going through perimenopause, basically you're telling me we're fucked, right?
No, I'm totally ADHD since I've been a kid. Yeah, it was really tough going through peri. I couldn't even get out of bed some days. I couldn't even start my day till 3:00 some days. Like it's brutal. It was definitely, it gets better. I'm in menopause now. I'm 54. I'm much better now. Still though, I have my days of lack of concentration because of it. Right. But yeah, it's a tough one. And for some women, they have an onset of ADHD or, lack of focus and concentration. And for others, it becomes exacerbated. So it is one of the symptoms. So good point, Dee, because
I feel like when you become a mom, it exacerbates it because I played around with the idea that I had it for a lot growing up and everything. But then when I became a mom, I felt like it got really out of control. And then I started noticing stuff in my little one. And I'm just kind of like, oh, there's a connection there.
Oh, yeah.
And then now perimenopause makes it into overdrive, I guess.
Oh, and the lack of sleep, right? I mean, that plays a major role. And so there's so many factors that come into that. I'm not a doctor, so I can't, diagnose anything or whatever, but I can just talk from my own personal situation. And I am definitely in the same boat. So I understand that completely. So when you look at the top 10, you're like, oh, okay, hot flash is number 10. Interesting, right? Because we always think it's the first one. So now to answer your question, Jay. So I was like, okay, so we know sleep issues are such a big issue in this phase of life, but why aren't we sleeping? And you hit the nail on the head. You said, well, I wake up at 4 a.m. every day. So when we asked women, so now we have a survey and there's over 3,000 responses on our sleep survey. And we asked women, well, why are you waking up during the night? Like I wanted to understand it. And most women said that they wake up so why aren't you sleeping well? Most women said they wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. Now, as a nutritionist and as somebody who's been in the health industry for a long time, my brain goes to, stress. It's got to be cortisol rising at the wrong time. But it could be other reasons. It could be blood sugars fluctuating. Maybe your blood sugar is going too high. Maybe it's going low. It could be digestion. I mean, it could be several different reasons. But my inclination was that it was stress. The number two reason we're waking up is because we're going to the bathroom a lot. So vasopressin, which is a hormone, it's an antidiuretic hormone. It changes as we go into this phase of life. So we may have to pee more often during the night. And then the third reason is night sweats. So it's not number one, it's the third. So when we did our anxiety survey, we actually confirmed that stress is the number one reason women are waking up in the middle of the night between that 2 and 4 a.m. 67% of the women said stress, racing thoughts, they can't turn their mind off. All of that is the reasons they're waking up. And that's generally in that 2 to 4 a.m. time slot, which is cortisol rising at the wrong time.
But let me ask you this, because stress, I don't know. To me, the word stress is very general term, right? Mm-hmm. Like, when you say stress is waking you up in the middle of the night, are you saying that we're harboring things that we've held on to throughout the day and suddenly like they pop into our minds in the middle of the night?
So I'm saying that so it's a great question. I'm saying that it could be anything. It could be that, we wake up, you wake up, your eyes open, and all of a sudden you're going through what happened in the day because you're processing, right? You're processing. You're like, oh, I had a fight with this one. And oh my gosh, I forgot to call my kid's teacher. And oh my gosh, my boss asked me to do this. And during the middle of the night, our brain is like going. And that's why it's really important that we don't allow it to go. And I'll share some tips with you in a minute. But it could be that, it could be, you know, and then once it starts, it's very hard to turn off your brain. Like,
Right.
yeah, then you're up for 2 hours and that's it. Once it goes, it's like goes. It could be bad dreams, or it could be heart palpitations. It could be, you know, it could be several different things that, you know, thoughts that are popping up in that middle of the night. So to answer your question, I don't know exactly, you know, what the exact reason or mechanism for it, but it has to do with the fact that we're not able to relax ourselves, and our anxiety, stress, thoughts, all of that is coming up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I feel like that's exactly it for me. Like for me, I find myself, I toss and turn a lot and I wake up because I'm hot. And then once I wake up just a little bit, then my mind just starts thinking about all the things I have to do, or, oh, I didn't get that done yesterday. I have to make sure I get it done today, you know, usually work related.
Yep.
And it just, then there's no chance of going to sleep. Maybe we'll take a couple bong rips to try to go back to sleep. But
does it work?
Sometimes, yeah. The pets, you know, if they have the right strain.
That I have to learn from you, because that is so out of my lane of expertise. But so here's what I'm going to say. Here's the tips that I'm going to give you, that if and when that's happening to you, the number one thing is, so first of all, before you go to bed. So let's talk about sleep hygiene. So before you go to bed, making sure you're setting yourself up for success. So making sure your room is dark, making sure your room is cool. Do not sleep with heavy covers. Try to sleep in as little pajamas as possible, like light little tank tops and underwear. Like, try not to wear too much because you're going to be hot. Making sure your room is dark. It's really important that we sleep in a dark room. Maybe, and it's harder I find for moms who have younger kids, like maybe you want to sleep with like earplugs, but I know it's tough because you want to be able to hear the kids. And so it may not be as, like, I think back to when my kids were little, I probably wouldn't have been comfortable to sleeping with them, but maybe with one that's on the top, you know, when you sleep on the slide, maybe the one that's kind of like in the air, that's not on your pillow. Like, maybe there's ways around it, but like sleeping with a sleep mask or a blackout blind, right? These are important because we want to make sure we set ourselves up for success, not eating too close to bed. Like I talked about, don't exercise too close to bed. For some women, it'll keep them up. If you go for, like, I like to go for a walk at night, and sometimes I'll go later and that's it. Like, I am not falling asleep so well. Doing some meditation, some deep breathing, maybe journaling, maybe turning off your phone an hour before, using a blue light filter, because all of that will keep us awake. So doing what we can to set ourselves up for success before bed, to calm us, so that we do get maybe that deep breathing, by the way, and meditation before bed works wonders. It really can help to relax us so that we make sure we're going to bed in a state of relaxation. Then if you wake up in the middle of the night, like most of us do, making sure, so a couple of tips that I am really a big fan of is making sure that your brain doesn't turn on by talking to yourself. So here's what happens in a scenario. You wake up, you're like, oh, I wake up, you're like, oh, I have to pee, whatever. Or I just wake up and I'm just like awake. And I've trained myself to say to myself, unless there's something crazy, majorly stressful going on, I have trained myself to say, no, not now. I'll worry about it in the morning. And it's really hard in the beginning. But the key is not allowing your brain to go, like we just said. So once it goes, you can't turn it off. Stop it before it goes. And if you could do that, and believe me, I am no stranger to anxiety and stress, like at all. If I could do it, I know that you and your audience can do it too. So just say no. And then I love a mantra. There's something called Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian healing modality. And it's 4 sentences. It's, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And it works for me. I literally will just repeat it over and over and over in my head, not thinking about anything else until I fall back asleep. And I generally fall back asleep.
Interesting.
It's like you're interrupting your brain. You're interrupting it. You're not letting it get there. I have a problem when, like, there's a song stuck in your head and you keep singing it and singing it and singing it, and you can't go to sleep because you're singing it. You have to interrupt all that.
Exactly. So don't let it get started. And then I'm a big fan of supplements. Like we have Morphus, we have our Sleep Us, and we have our magnesium. And again, setting yourself, I forgot to mention that as part of setting yourself up for success, but taking magnesium before bed, the bisglycinate, helps you sleep better. Taking our Sleep Us, our Morphus Sleep Us product, it's awesome. It's got sustained release melatonin. It has L-theanine that calms the brain. It has magnesium, and it has something called lactium that helps to regulate cortisol. So helping us with that, you know, doing everything we talked about, and not allowing your brain to go, and saying something like Ho'oponopono, all of that together has made a big difference. And I track my sleep. I am obsessed with sleep. So I know that it definitely works. And we have a lot of customers who tell us how Sleep Buzz is amazing, but it's a matter of just being consistent. And the key is consistency for all of it, right? Because trying it once is not, maybe won't work, right? But being consistent and training yourself, that is the key to getting that better night's sleep.
Yeah, you can't be
We gotta
like,
train ourselves.
it didn't work, I'm not gonna do it. It never works. You have to keep trying.
You have to. Yeah, we have to. So like anything, right? Consistency is key.
Yeah, consistency is also one of the hardest things, I feel like, for me too. I mean, in general, I feel all of us struggle with consistency because, you know,
Yeah.
life is so
Chaotic.
it's so chaotic that it's hard to. But
It is.
I feel like once you start doing it and you like put yourself in that mental place, after you've done it for a while, you can
Where it
continue
becomes a
to,
habit, routine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the key, because who's going to pay the price if we're not consistent? Us. Right.
Right.
So it's part of self-love. I believe it's part of self-love and self-care. So if you forget to, let's say, take supplements, keep it by your bedside table with a glass of water. Or during the day, or if you need reminders of how to say that mantra, keep a piece of paper, or keep it, try not to get on your phone in the middle of the night. That's the other really important thing. Once you turn your phone on, or try not to go down to the kitchen and grab something to eat, because once you're awake, that is really tough. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night, do not, if you can, please do not go on your phone. Do not go get a snack. Try to go back to sleep with the strategies that we talked about, because sleep and digestion are two of the most important things that we need in perimenopause and menopause. And that will set you up for success if you're able to tackle those two things alone, just to start.
Well, is there anything else that you think that we didn't ask about that we definitely
I know
should know?
you've given us such valuable information. What else can you tell us?
Oh my gosh, what's in my brain is a lot. I would just say the most important thing too is also just being gentle with yourself. Like, we tend to be, and I know I'm going to speak from experience. I am so hard on myself, and I was so hard on myself in perimenopause, to the point where I would like get angry with myself, and I'd be like, why is your body doing this? Why am I doing this? Like, I would yell at myself and be like, wait, I haven't changed anything. Is there an alien taking over my body? Like, what is going on? I just want to feel like myself. So when we're in the weeds and we're going through these symptoms, and it's very hard to be able to see the light at the end of that tunnel, right? At the end of the weeds, because it's so cloudy and murky, and you're just like, but I do want you to know that it does get better. I'm on the other side. I'm in menopause. I was in perimenopause. And this is why I understand it really well. I was in perimenopause for a total of 14 years, 11 of which I had no idea. 11 years I suffered with crazy of the, tons of the 103 plus symptoms, and didn't know why. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing this work, because if we can help one woman, one person understand, if I was able to help you, Jay, or you, D, understand what's happening to your body, then I've done my job. Because no longer do we want women to go into this phase of life not understanding what is happening to her body. You are not crazy. There is no alien taking over your body. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of fluctuation, a lot of flux and fluctuation and nestiness and all that stuff that's happening. But I want you to understand what it is. And I love that you're both younger than me. And I love that you're like, hey, I think we're in perimenopause. Like, I love that, because it could start as early as 35, like we said. So if you're over 35 and you are starting to exhibit any of the 103 plus symptoms, they're all on my website. You can, if you want to put a link, it's wearemorphus.com. You can go check them out. They're on the surveys. You can go check them out. And you go to your doctor and you're like, I think this might be happening to me. And if your doctor says you're too young and you're over 35, then try to explain, try to educate your doctor, or try something, because you're not too young. And I want you to know that.
Yeah, doctors aren't. I feel like we figure it out before they do.
100%.
Yeah, I had to go to my doctors and be like, hey, I'm going through this now. Can you test my hormones? Can we like talk about different things to alleviate, you know? So
We have a doctor's visit survey, and we found out that on average, 40% of women are going to their doctor 2 to 3 times before the connection is made between how they're feeling and it being perimenopause and menopause. 18% of women are going 4 to 5 times. 17% of women are going 5+ times.
Wow.
So 75% of women are going to their doctor 2 or more times and before the connection is made. We need to change that. We need to flip it. We need to go.
I think doing what we're doing right now is gonna help bring that down a considerable amount.
Amazing.
Just having more and more conversations, yeah, and just talking about it. And what are we to, okay, we talked a lot about perimenopause, but like, what are we to expect in menopause? Is it like big difference in symptoms? I feel like a lot of them are similar. They continue on through menopause.
So great question. So what we found is, so for a lot of women, symptoms improve. For some women, they don't. Some women have them to come back. So everybody's really different. So as a whole, I love being in menopause because perimenopause was such a difficult time for me. I find that once my hormones settled into the menopausal ranges, my body was much happier for me. We do know, according to my research, that women in perimenopause, so from a symptom point of view, are more likely to experience fatigue, anxiety, lack of patience, headaches or migraines, emotional weepiness, and social anxiety. And we know that women in menopause are more likely to report sleep issues, hot flashes, night sweats, a slower metabolism, changes in body shape. So that's where the waking comes in for those, and inflammation. So women do report having more of specific symptoms. But this is the thing: nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, all of that, and hormones, if that's what you choose to do. It's just out of my lane, so that's not something that I speak about. But all of that, we have our toolbox. And all of that can actually help us to feel better so that we can manage our symptoms, right? So we don't have to suffer. You know, I look at my mother and she suffered tremendously for like 20 years. We don't have to suffer. There are so many options these days.
I think I'm going to be educating my moms on this because I don't think they ever took the time to really learn, you know, other than what their doctors told them.
They didn't, right? It wasn't.
There wasn't a lot of research, a lot of information out there. So
not like there is today. So.
No accessibility to it.
Yeah, and there's so much accessibility today. So yes, please speak to your doctors, educate them, send them to our website, send them our list of 103 plus symptoms, send them our surveys. Like I have a list of the symptoms with check boxes that you could give to your doctor and say, here, give these to your female patients, you know, or to their patients, you know, ask them to fill this out, right? Because that's how they can understand what their patients are going through, so they could treat them and support them.
Can you tell us the special link that you shared for with us for our audience, the Morphus for Menopause Sleep Protocol? Can you tell us? Can you share with our audience what that is?
Yeah, so it's everything we talked about. It's a PDF with all the information kind of summarized, that it's easy for you to have in one sheet. That if you were interested in, you know, kind of like as a reminder of what you can actually do to help you sleep better.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. I'll definitely share that. And then we're going to encourage our listeners to fill out the survey because we need as much data collection on this as possible to really get, you know, the research done. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and for doing the work and doing the research that is very much needed. And we really appreciate your time tonight.
Oh, and thank you for having me. This has been awesome. And I appreciate you inviting me to come on.
That was Andrea Donsky, nutritionist, co-founder of Morphus, and soon to be published menopause researcher. I really learned so much speaking with her. And honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg with so much more research finally getting done. So I think we should all really help her with that research, and let's go check out her website and complete some of those surveys, because the more data, the better. That's how they're currently conducting the research, is through these research surveys. So if you're interested in completing one of these surveys to be a part of the research, you can check out her website, wearemorphus.com. And if you click on research and then research studies, you'll see a bunch of different surveys available that you can participate in. And also, she shared with us specifically a free copy of the Morphus for menopause sleep protocol. We kind of discussed that during the interview. As you know, many of us are struggling with sleep right now. So this is the protocol she went over, a nice PDF document with all the information on the protocol you should follow to help you have a better night's sleep. You can connect with Andrea Donsky on TikTok and Instagram at Andrea Donsky. That's AndreaDonsky, or at We Are Morphus, not Morpheus, like I said in the interview, Morphus. We are MORPHUS. And you can check out their website at wearemorphus.com. So we really hope you enjoyed this episode and found it as informative and useful as we did. Let us know what other kind of content you're interested in hearing. If you enjoyed this interview, we really, really, really love when you guys give us feedback. You can hit us up on the DMs. You can join us next week for another regular episode with me and Dee. We'll catch you guys up on our amazing Libra Beach weekend celebration. Hear all the details on that, and of course your regular news nugs and I Love You Miami news. Check out our website to see how you can become a patron and be a part of these special weekends, have access to our Discord channel, our server, and much more perks. Please make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all those good things, and we are very excited to see you again next week. Bye.